It is true. Nathanael walked with Jesus, but it almost did not happen. Nathanael received the news from Philip, a zealous new follower of Jesus, one of the very first few, in fact. We have found the one Moses told us about. It's Jesus of Nazareth. But one question nearly ended the discussion and the future that Nathanael had before him. Pastor Daniel, you did that nicely. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Nazareth was a small village off the beaten path, not the kind of place you might go looking for the next best thing. But should geography limit God's calling? Or a more helpful question, should stereotypes limit our vision? Indeed, Nathanael had some stereotypes about what places have the power to produce significant people, and because of it, he nearly missed the opportunity to walk with Jesus. Stereotypes, we've laughed a bit about them this morning already, but they still hinder our ability to walk with Jesus now. They come in so many flavors and varieties. How quickly we can make an impression of another person even before they say a word. The color of skin, ethnicity, appearance, what we perceive to be their socioeconomic status, family of origin, and so on and so on and so on. And we can build a whole world around an individual. Thoughts about who they are and what they're like. And much of that happens subconsciously. We don't even have to think about it. We can just take that all on. We're a bit more conscious of some of our stereotypes, of course. Probably among people who are seeking to be good. If they're about to say something racist, you can almost bet that they're going to say, "But I have a black friend." Maybe heard that a time or two before. Or, "I'm connected to somebody in the group that I'm about to denigrate." It's a bit of a formula that gets played out there. Our focus today, though, is not the kind of stereotype that we feel we need to justify. No, I'd like for us to consider the ones that seem so common and natural that we don't even feel the need to justify them. And that includes the stereotypes and prejudices that we hold about people from generations other than our own. I hear it. I've heard it in this building. When someone tells me about how lazy and entitled and glued to our phones millennials are, as if they thought my identity was pastor, not millennial. I too am one of them. Becca keeps reminding me I'm an older one of them, but I am one of them. And at times, I admit, I've been on my high horse standing in this very pulpit, and I've made some sweeping judgments about older generations. And assume that that comes with inflexibility when it comes to times of change. It's as if I've let my own stereotypes cloud my vision. So I couldn't see you. Because honestly, when I look at this congregation, I don't see inflexibility, an unwillingness to change or try something new. I see many of you open to that, and the truth is, many of you are leading that work, pushing me to keep us moving. The dominant narratives about boomers and millennials and Gen X and Gen Alpha can cause us to ignore one another and instead put each other into ill-fitting boxes. What good can come to Nazareth? Nathanael asked. Or the 1950s, or the 80s, or the 2010s. Our stereotypes are so incredibly stifling. I find Nathanael's lack of curiosity quite curious. Hearing news as good as Philip presented, and Nathanael didn't have a single follow-up question to ask. How did you know all that stuff about Jesus, he could have asked, or you're going to have to tell me more. I'm not sure I believe it, but at least try to make a case to me. Nothing. What good can come to Nazareth was his one question. I have to read between the lines a little bit in our passage, but his response doesn't feel like a well-thought-out answer. It seems like a gut reaction, the kind of thing you blurt out without even thinking about it. Can anything good come from Nazareth? Those boomers, Gen X, the millennials, Gen Z, Generation Alpha. Those ideas, the things we don't even have to think about, seem so natural. And yet, some kind of conditioning had to happen for us to take on stereotypes, especially for things that we adopt and they come to us so easily. I'll leave it to you to consider how we learn the stereotypes. The question before us today, though, is what do we lose when we stereotype one another and then make broad sweeping judgments based upon those bad ideas? Plenty. We lose plenty. For Nathanael, it would have been the missed opportunity to walk with Jesus. For us still, when we hold prejudices about one another or about other generations, it continues to be a missed opportunity to find wisdom and energy and joy that comes from interacting with people who have a different experience of the world than our own. If it's that costly, how do we subvert the stereotypes or the script that we play out so easily? I wonder if anyone's ever tried to convince another person that their stereotype is wrong. Ever tried that? How well does that go? Probably not. If Philip had tried that, I assume Nathanael would have simply walked away and gone home. But instead, Philip came at it from a different angle. He offered an invitation. Come and see. This is an invitation and a sentiment that we hear over and over again in John's gospel. Of course, John writes to invite us to come and see Jesus as the Son of God. But in the genre of Gospels, where so little attention is given to character development, John is unique. John gives depth to the characters. John lingers with the characters. They're complex, and there are rich images, even in brief portions of Scripture. Some of the people that John invites us to come and see are the kind of people that we might want to hold our stereotypes around. People like Nicodemus. John tells us, don't pigeonhole the one from Nazareth, nor the ones he encounters. Instead, come and see Jesus and Nicodemus and a Samaritan woman, and a man who couldn't walk but was made to walk, and in that story ended up having a pretty decent sense of humor as well. And come and see Mary and Martha and Lazarus and Peter and Thomas. Come and see even Nathanael. Come and see these delightfully rich and quite frankly, beautiful characters. Come and see and realize that in connection across the places of our differences, we find wisdom and a beautiful community. Come and see those who are not like you and find the fresh thoughts that emerge out of different perspectives. Simply put, come and see. I've had to laugh this last week as I've read some articles in preparation for this moment, and a lot of them sound like this. They say, your church should be intergenerational, and here is why it is so incredibly difficult to do so. Be encouraged, friends. It may be difficult, but to come and see doesn't have to be all that hard. In fact, it is happening naturally here already. Now, you can't see them, but each Sunday, from my vantage point, I can look up and at least see the tops of heads in our AV team in Mission Control up there. We have someone as young as 10 years old, someone as old as 87 years old who work together to make sure that we can hear and see and live stream our worship services. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Thank you to that team. Can we show a little love? Yeah. And now while you all are appreciating them, here's a call for you to join them. We could use a few more people on that. Find me afterwards if you'd like to join them. I hear the gift of intergenerational connections from those who have gone on intergenerational mission trips, those who've swung hammers beside one another, experienced the joy of being with someone from a different generation, doing good together. But as much as those articles would try to convince me that it's nearly impossible to do this, it doesn't require a program or a major initiative for us to begin to break down the stereotypes so that we can get to know one another. Consider something that many of you, at least who are on site, do here every Sunday, and do it in a slightly different way. Each Sunday, many who are in this room right now are invited to join us across the hall for a warm beverage and some time for conversation, donut, or whatever happens to be on the table at the time. And I'm guessing, because we're all humans around here, we likely talk to some of the same people week after week after week. Try this. Just even try it once. Find someone different and say, hi, how are you today? You get bonus points if you look for someone who's younger than you or someone who's older than you, and you say, hi, how are you today? And then stick around long enough to hear a real answer. We have wonderful opportunities between the things that we schedule and plan. We have wonderful opportunities every time that we gather to be more than just multi-generational. I appreciate, Becca, the work you've done to help us with this language. Multi-generation is easy. It means that many generations just kind of coexist. We are in the same place at the same time. We better be more than that. We are called to be intergenerational, which means intentionally connecting with one another across our generations. But as I said, it doesn't have to be a whole new initiative or big projects. It's just looking for someone in another generation and talking with them. And in some ways, it's already happening, and I celebrate that. Keep up the good work. I also want to note another important detail in our passage today. Jesus did not chastise Nathanael for his doubts or his questions. In fact, the opposite was true. When Jesus took the time to see Nathanael, even when he was still afar off and sitting under the tree, Jesus celebrated great virtue and honesty in Nathanael. Jesus didn't fixate on the challenges, the question that he had asked about Nazareth, and Jesus wasn't harsh with him either. The point today is not for us to feel guilty if we live in the silos of our generation. I do want to provide one caveat to that, though. If you have to justify the things you say with, but I have a fill-in-the-blank friend, stop that. But for most of us, we've probably just adopted, even inadvertently, a lot of stories about those who are different than us. We were given a script and we're just playing the role. It's time for us to tell a different story. Usually those ideas are not well thought out. They're learned in other ways, but to draw our attention to them is an opportunity for us to write a new script, an intergenerational script. If we can change the narrative, if we can come and see one another, something good is in store for us. For both Nathanael and for us, our stereotypes may be the greatest barrier to us experiencing the great adventure of discipleship in community. So why not just come and see? Amen.